I stay.
I stay.
I stay.
I stay.
I stay.
I stay.
I'm staying here.
To whom else shall we go?
The Why I Stay podcast, where we find joy in staying in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm your host, Lindsay Clyde, and I want to ask you, why do you stay? Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Why I Stay podcast. I missed you. I've been all over the place trying to get my life together and put some episodes out for you. And so we've got another one here. And I loved this episode. And I'm so mad because, oh wait, okay, let's rewind. My amazing friend loaned me a microphone. So the sound is beauty. And I was messing around with it before and playing with it. And then I went to record this thinking that the sound is going to be awesome. And it's not. I'm going to have to go back and figure out what exactly went wrong. But the fabulous guests that come on this podcast make it what it is. Am I right? Everybody give a round of applause. Background noise. So I want to introduce to you Hayley Clark. We met over Instagram. I asked her if she wanted to be on this podcast, and she said yes. She's got some big things happening to her in her space on Instagram right now, and it's exciting. I'm excited for her, and I really am glad that she came on here to share a little bit of her story. We're going to be talking about wrestling. We're going to be talking about remembering, and we're going to be talking about covenants, and I think you're going to love this episode. So without further ado, here we go. Hayley Clark.
Hello, welcome back to the Why I Stay podcast, the podcast where we discover why we stay in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And today, for this episode, I have with me Hayley Clark. Hayley, thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so wonderful.
I'm excited. Listeners, the way that this podcast works is that we start by getting to know Hayley with some rapid fire questions. Then we move into 3 questions. I call them exploratory questions, where we delve into Hayley's experience in the gospel of Jesus Christ. And then the last question is in the title of the podcast: why do you stay in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? And I love this podcast, and I can't wait for this episode to begin. So Hayley, ready to get into it?
Ready.
Perfect. How old are you?
I'm 31. I had to think about it.
It wasn't that long. You didn't have to think that long. It was fine. Do you have any nicknames?
No.
That's fine. Where do you live?
Saratoga Springs, Utah.
What's your favorite food?
Pizza.
What's your current hobby?
Making clothing. I guess. Making a lot of things.
You're a creator. That's great.
I am.
What is your favorite calling you've ever had?
Oh, honestly, the one that I have right now, which is gospel doctrine teacher. So I teach the adults, and I love it mostly because I feel like I get more out of it than maybe they do, but right? I absolutely love it.
Yes, I feel the same. What is a controversial opinion that you hold? Like, everybody's loving Crocs these days, but you actually hate them.
A little bit of that. Yeah. I mean, honestly, based on what I'm seeing from my page, just that I celebrate modesty, and a lot of people don't like that. So that's pretty controversial, I guess, right now.
And good for you. Blazing a trail. What is your biggest dream?
Oh my goodness. To see Jesus come back to the earth.
Yes. Good dream.
That's a great dream.
It's like, I always think I would love to be there for that, but do I want to go through all the destruction part?
Trust me. That's why it's a dream.
Okay, there you go.
You don't have to, the part of the dream is not dealing with all the bad stuff, but I also think I'm very aware that with the good stuff comes all the opposition. So I think we might have to.
Isn't that just the truth in all aspects of life? The further you push on the trail of discipleship, like the harder the opposition comes, but the greater the blessings. And so Absolutely. It all kind of just, it seems hard sometimes, but it seems to also work out.
Absolutely.
What is something about you that is the same now as it was when you were in high school?
Oh my gosh.
I can edit out all the silence. You just sit there and you think about it.
I mean, at this point, I don't think I am the same at all, honestly.
That's great. Like, tell us about that.
I would say the only thing that isn't different from when I was in high school is how much I like how passionate I am about being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But that also was like the end of my high school career. Yeah, because all through high school, I just was definitely not the same as who I was at all. I don't even think I liked pizza really then. I think I was worried about the food that I ate too much. So I think I'm almost completely different.
That is a very, very great answer. Thank you for sharing that with me. Okay, so, and then I've been adding these like random questions in. So I'm just going to think of a question really quick. Okay, here it goes. If you could choose the outfit for one person in the world right now, you could style them. Who would it be and what would you style them in?
Oh my goodness. Well, whoever it is has to wear one of my swimsuits because I own a swimsuit company. So that is obvious. So it has to be a woman. And honestly, the first person I thought of was Wendy Nelson. So
Yeah!
Sister Nelson is going on a cruise anytime soon. I've got a swimsuit for her.
I hope so much. Listeners, if you have any connections of connections so that Wendy Nelson can get a swimsuit from Hayley Clark, please let us know. Email me or go on to Hayley's Instagram page and find her, and we will get Wendy this swimsuit. Okay.
I love that so much.
So much. What color are you thinking? Like, what color do you think would look so good on her?
Oh my goodness. We have like a deep berry color that I feel like would be so good on her. And it's just like mature, but it's like kind of romantic and also just like kind of bold. Like just, I feel like that fits her so well.
Yeah, I agree. Can't wait. It's happening.
Someday.
Okay, seriously, I'm like still so that's so fun. I'm so glad I asked you that question.
The best.
It's so best. It's so the best. Okay, so now it's time for the exploratory questions. And the first one that you're talking to us about is, when have you had to have courage in your discipleship?
I wanted to talk about this, especially because of the last week of my life has been really, really weird. The way that my page has grown. So I have like 3 different Instagram accounts, one for my business, one for like my very personal, like my family photos and things like that. And then about maybe a year ago, I started another page that I like didn't really know what to use it for. And it was used for a couple different things. I would post things about like when I was doing little projects at home that was like do it yourself project, and or when I would go thrifting for clothes, or like behind the scenes of my business. And just none of it really felt like, I knew I needed that space, but just none of it really felt like it fit. And so I started after I think last general conference, I was feeling a lot more like I needed to share just about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, about my testimony of Jesus Christ, about my conversion story, and why I stay in the Church of Jesus Christ. And I was really hesitant, honestly. Like I probably come across as really bold, but I have been burned in the past for things that I have spoken up about. And so it was really tricky to think like, I don't need to be doing that. Other people are doing it. There's enough out there already. I'm not really needed, but I kept doing little videos here and there. My following grew to like, over 1,000 people. I really wasn't counting. I'm really like, it's great if people want to come by and see. And then something happened when I posted in my stories about wearing my garments and a dress that I bought. And I bought it specifically knowing that I was going to need to alter the neckline. I genuinely did. I was like, I'm going to buy this and I know I'm going to need to alter it. And it's fine. That's genuinely what I usually do if I see that it's not modest, but it's cute enough. And so anyway, long story short, my friend messaged me and was like, hey, you need to put that as a reel. Like, I want to share it. And it caught like wildfire.
Really?
And in a way, it was a little bit scary. Like when I first posted it, I was like, this is fine. It's no big deal. 1,500 people are maybe seeing it. It didn't take like a lot of courage. But slowly but surely the number of views grew, the number of people watching it, the number of commenters, all of that grew. And along with that comes a lot of criticism. And I think that this last week was really a time for me to show like just how courageous I could be, right? Like I think we can all say all day long, oh, Heavenly Father, I have so much faith. I have so much faith. But when it's really put to the test, when you are really needing to prove yourself, like that is the real indicator of what faith actually looks like and what your testimony is actually built upon. And so just this last week, I feel like has been a few moments of courage and really standing up for not really just myself, but for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
So let me tell the listeners a little bit of backstory really quick, because we had talked to each other a while ago about you being on this podcast.
Yeah.
And I think I sent it to your email and it must have gone to spam or something and been deleted because it's been a while. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
And I do a little bit of Instagram work for a company called Noble and Great, which does like retreats for young adult women. And so I think I found you through there, and then I connected you with my podcast. Anyway, I've been on Instagram a little bit more than I normally am, but I'm not on there a ton, and on purpose most of the time, because it's hard. It's a hard place to be, and posting content and creating. So applaud you there. And then I saw one of your reels that you made talking about like how you equate wearing the temple garment to like the team that you're on, like the professional clothes that people wear. That's what this is the meaning that I was taking from it. Just we wear things that represent what we stand for.
Yeah.
And it just really struck me, and I reached out to you because I was like, oh yeah, we never followed that, never came, our podcast episode never happened.
Right.
And then you said, I'm just going to do it right now. I'm just, next day you're on the podcast. And I think the Lord used our circumstances so that you could come on having this last week's experience, because I didn't even see that blow up. I haven't even seen it. I'm really excited to go on and see what is causing all the hullabaloo. But
little commotions going on over there.
I'm excited about that, but I really do think that the Lord prepared us both and used our situations to bring us together to have you come on and talk about that, because I'm betting you there's somebody who needs to hear about having a little bit more courage online. I'm grateful for your example.
Yeah, I think there's one thing. I mean, it's one thing to be courageous in person with somebody when you're having like a face-to-face conversation with them, and you can kind of feel their energy and they can feel yours, and you can hug at the end of it, right? Like, I'm a convert, so I've had to have this conversation with a lot of people face-to-face, saying like, this is what I believe, and they're like, well, this is what I believe, and we kind of just agree to disagree, and it's very, friendly and amicable. And then when you take it to an online space where people their hearts are failing them, there's very little empathy, there's very little finding the middle. It's a lot more of like, well, you're on this side and I'm on this side and we are divided, and there's not a lot of that middle ground that I think we are all kind of looking for. And so I honestly think for me, the courage, I could go on and on. So many different experiences that I've had of when I've had to find courage. When I first got baptized when I was 18, and even before then, the several times that I asked my parents if I could get baptized, I worked up my courage and they said no. And then even after I was baptized, I moved to LA and I had to have courage there to be a disciple of Jesus Christ in literally one of the craziest places on the planet, and then to have courage to get married in the temple when that wasn't something that my family was used to, the courage to have kids at a young age, and the courage to just keep moving forward, and all of these experiences. I think just this last week though was a really good reminder for me that like we have all done courageous things, and what we're doing right now can sometimes be the most courageous thing. And those little things that happened before will build up to what we're going through right now.
Thank you for sharing all of those. When you said their hearts are failing them, I've never, ever thought about that phrase in this term.
Yeah.
Thought about these words in that way. And just the fact that like our hearts are the places that like we feel and we love each other through. Yeah. And our hearts are failing us, not only like in courage wise sometimes, but also in the ability to love, give and receive love. And wow, that is such an eye opener. And yeah, we just need so much courage for that specifically. But your journey from conversion to where you're at now, I can see it, and I see the Lord preparing you. So thank you for sharing those things.
Yeah, of course.
Second question is, what is one experience that really increased your maturity in the gospel?
The first thing I thought of, because again, so many things, right? I feel like I've had so many experiences, and I'm very much one where I will journal. So I have a pretty vivid memory of like, this experience happened then, and this is how it made me grow. Though when I thought about this, it was COVID. Initially, that was my first thought, because to grow in spiritual maturity, to me, it means that you rely on your own testimony. It wasn't the first time that I had to do that. I mean, again, plenty of times I went to church by myself. Plenty of times I did a lot of things without, somebody kind of holding my hand through it. Where my spiritual maturity really blossomed was when we were home for church, when we couldn't gather, when it was up to my husband and I to decide not to stay in our pajamas for home church, but to actually like get ready and get dressed and teach our 3 kids and really decide like, why are we doing this from home? Why are we still doing this when like we didn't have to, like in quotes, right? In my air quotes, because we weren't like going to church. And I feel like the last 2 years, I guess 2.5, that we have had, from what I feel like was a hinge point for a lot of people, has really helped me to grow my testimony of Jesus Christ himself, and also of the prophet Joseph Smith, especially before the April 2020 conference, when President Nelson asked us to study those things. I feel like I had more time. And for me personally, I made a decision to use that time a little more wisely for what I wanted to be learning about more. There was a lot, the first little part of those 2 weeks where we thought we were going to be shut down for just 2 weeks, I wasted a lot of time. I think a lot of people did, just assuming life would go back to normal 2 weeks later. And when it didn't, I think I was very, very aware of like, something needs to change if this is what we're going to be doing, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm speaking a little vague, but like I went through a big transition, and to a point where I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much I really love Christ, how much I really love learning about my covenants in the temple, until like we couldn't go to church, we couldn't go to the temple. My favorite place to go at that time was the gardens at Thanksgiving Point. There are these statues of Christ that are absolutely beautiful. And I got to go on my birthday for the very first time, actually, in like August 2020. And when I walked up, it makes me cry every time. I walked up, I looked, and there's a statue of Christ, and he's walking on the water. And the way that the bushes were just like swaying back and forth, and it looked like waves. It looked like he was like walking towards me on the water, and I bawled and it just was one of those times when I was like, where is my testimony planted? And these last 2 years have really, really been such an eye-opening experience for me to help me grow more spiritually mature. And I love that this is even a question, because it's one of those things where I look back when I first started to grow my testimony, and I thought, man, I really love Jesus at this time. And to now, over 10 years later, to be able to say, no, like I love him and I know him and I want to be like him. It's just such a difference. Not to say that I didn't have a testimony before, but my testimony now is just so different. And I love that word, mature. And I still have a long, long way to go. I have a cute friend who always says, I'm just at the beginning of my life. I'm just at the start. And I love that, because we talk so much about how mortality is kind of just a blip. And really, we are still at the very beginning. Like, we're just learning. We're just children still. But I do think the last couple of years have really helped my spiritual maturity. And I love that you asked that.
What a beautiful image of Christ coming towards you on the water. I could see it in my mind as you described it. And I think if we all go back and evaluate and really think about the things that happened to us during the shutdown, I think we will find really big hinge points for each of us. some more difficult and maybe more negative than others, but to
Right.
see that there is truth to this, like the truth is that there was a lot of growing happening, even if it felt like we were backsliding a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
There was a lot of growth, and even like thinking about it again,
Yeah.
it takes me back to like
Yeah.
that. Really, it was a wrestling. It was a wrestle.
Definitely.
That really
Definitely.
was.
I have loved that word wrestle lately. Okay, to talk about this word wrestle really fast, because this has been on my mind so much lately since we studied the story of Job.
Yes.
I listened to the Follow Him podcast with Hank Smith and John, by the way, and one of their guests talked about wrestling and what a beautiful word it is. And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? You know, because I'm thinking wrestle, like it just sounds not fun. I don't know. But he was like, when you are wrestling with someone, you are like basically embracing them. You are so close. You are right there in it, like with each other. And you are like holding on to each other as you like figure this out, whatever it is. And that word wrestle ever since has just kind of blown me away. And I totally agree that I think maybe that's where the spiritual maturity can grow, is within the wrestle, because you are trying to have this closer relationship with God. And I think that's why, like within our trials, it is a little bit easier to feel close to him because you're wrestling, right? And I love that. I know COVID and the shutdowns, I know the shutdowns were such a hard time for a lot of people. I mean, I would say everyone. I do feel like it was a kind of a wonderful time in a way, just because we were able to focus on what really, really matters to us.
And the wrestle, that what you said about you're struggling against somebody and holding on to them as hard as you can, right? Like try and pry two wrestling people apart. Like just try. You
Right.
can't.
Right.
And I think that's where we need to hold on the tightest, is when we are struggling the most.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you for going into that.
Yeah.
Last exploratory question is, what makes you so excited about the gospel of Jesus Christ? What aspects of it really light you up?
Do I have to just pick one thing?
Right.
I know we've already kind of touched on covenants, but I seriously love covenants. I have been going to the temple once a week when I can. And it has truly changed me. It has truly changed the way I view covenants. And I'm still learning. And whenever I go to the temple, I leave wondering, why don't people want this? Why is there anybody out there that says, no, thank you, that's not for me? Like, that is what lights me up. The idea that Jesus Christ is like so willing and ready to provide his power to us if we are willing and ready. It blows my mind so much. And I think like President Nelson lights me up. I think he is the spiritual momentum that he has talked about, like for us. Like he has brought so much light and goodness. And I'm like, there's so many things. And it's his focus on covenants and on this, like not even the idea, but on the literal power that Jesus Christ can provide us. That is what lights me up 1000%.
Amen. The emoji hands up. Yes, I agree. And you're right. President Nelson is the embodiment of spiritual momentum. He is rolling it forward for us. He
Yes.
puts it in front of us and is just like asking us to come along for the ride that I know the Lord is taking him on. And it is so exciting. And yes, covenants, like the hands up. I totally agree. I said this once, go and perform an initiatory for someone. If you've gone through the temple for yourself already, go through again and go do initiatories and listen to the promises that are made to you and tell me that's not power.
Absolutely.
And tell me that's not true.
Right.
Like, it is power and it is true.
Right.
And
it's just blessings, literal blessings from heaven
all over the
showered
place.
upon you. Yes. Like they're so incredible. So many like miracles, really. And it's just, once you see them, you're like, I never want to let this go. I never want to get rid of this in my life, and doing this for other people as well. Right. Like we are so blessed to have the restored gospel here on the earth today. Like, we are just blessed out of our minds, and we just need it so much.
We take it for granted, and you're right. We take it for granted. And what would you say to somebody who has felt that way before and is not feeling that way now for whatever reason, whether it's just letting life get away with them or feeling like they're surrounded by negativity? What would you say to somebody who doesn't feel that way right now?
I would ask them to remember and ask them just to try one more time. Because it just takes one time. As a convert, as somebody who walked through very uncertainly the open house of a temple before I was baptized, and I was just kind of, really unsure. It just takes one time. It takes one moment. It takes one thing for like everything to change in you, for the Spirit to be able to like reside in your heart and say, this is it. This is true. And going back to what I said before about remembering, that word remember, I think is the most used word in the scriptures. And I think it's because we forget. I think the natural man in us just forgets. And it's not really like a fault. Like, it's not like, oh, you did it bad, you didn't remember. It's that's just how we are as people. And it's up to us to remember. It's up to us to continue to like look back and think, wow, that happened, and I'm so glad it did, and this is why, and to share and to do all these things. Like, I don't exactly know if this is the answer you were looking for, but that is probably what I would share with somebody, is just like, try to think back and remember those times when you did feel that way, and what kind of blessings that brought to you.
This reminds me of today when my mom, we're living with my parents right now, and my mom has just made these Oreo like cookies and cream cookies. They're like full of white chocolate chips and Oreos, and I've just been eating a lot. And I know that my body doesn't feel that great when I eat so many cookies, so much sugar. And I was going to go in the fridge, and the cookies are right next to the fridge, and I was going to go grab a cookie. And I thought to myself, I should probably not eat that, because if I eat it now, all I'm going to want to do is keep eating cookies. And before, other times, plenty of times, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. And then I eat the cookie. Today, I had the thought come to me, all it takes is one time. All it takes is one strong action. All it takes is one righteous action to change and give you power and strength and momentum to get to the next righteous and spiritual and strengthened action. And so I reached into the fridge and I grabbed an apple. And I ate an
proud of
apple.
you.
Everyone clap for me, like cheering effect. Yay! But honestly, I think that's just what you're hitting on, and is remembering the fact that you want to do this.
Yeah.
At Time Out for Women yesterday in Arizona, Anthony Sweat said, we make covenants in our strength to protect us against our future, potentially weaker selves.
Oh, I love that.
Right? And it's so true. We make them in our strength when we're feeling like we're in it to win it and it's what we want. We make those promises expecting that when the time comes that we're feeling weak and we don't remember and we can't feel the Spirit, that there was a time when we did believe, and we want to live for that person. We want to live for that past self who knew, and we can get there again, because if we were there once, we can get there again. And
Absolutely.
I think the remembering that you're hitting on and all of these things are just so key. So key.
Oh, I love that so much.
Okay, here we are at our final question. This has been a riveting podcast episode. I love it. I can't wait to edit it and listen to it again. Hayley, why do you stay in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
I stay in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints because I know that it's true. I have said this before in another video, but I have lived a life without the gospel of Jesus Christ. I've lived a life without covenants, without knowing what covenants were, without holding on to those covenants. And I am a different person when I became a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the best way possible. I have watched myself go from one way to another way. And I've watched Jesus Christ take my heart and change it. I've literally watched myself transform. And I never want that to go away. I can remember what it felt like to be baptized. I can remember having the Holy Ghost, the gift of the Holy Ghost conferred upon me. But I remember so vividly because it was more recent. I feel like when I was 18, like that's a very pivotal time in my life. Talk about a hinge point, right? Like I know without a doubt that God has directed my life in so many different ways. And I cannot deny his hand in my life. I cannot deny the atonement of Jesus Christ that I've had to utilize in my life for various reasons, numerous times. And I never want the joy that I feel because of Jesus Christ to leave me. That is why I stay.
Hayley, thank you so much for your light, for your conversion, for your journey. And no matter where it takes you in the future, I just hope that you know that you have touched me, and I know you'll touch a lot of people who are listening to this podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was so wonderful. You're the sweetest.
It was wonderful. I agree.
And that concludes my episode with Hayley Clark, right? That's all I have to say, right? Covenants, remembering, wrestling. What are you going to do this week to recommit to the wrestle? And I want you to think about that. Remember why you wanted to in the first place. These things, as we think about them, as we live them and do them, and as we stand up for them, we will find ourselves strengthened through our covenants, through the power that Jesus Christ offers us through his atoning sacrifice. We are a part of something miraculous. It's like magic, and we have access to this power, to God's power, as we keep our covenants and as we stay faithful. And just try again. Just try one more time. If you love this episode, please share it with a friend, and I would love to have you on this podcast. Please, please, please come on this podcast. Email me at whyistaypodcast@gmail.com, and we will get you on this podcast. Thanks for being here, guys, and again, thank you for staying with us. We'll see you next time. The Why I Stay podcast is a faith-based podcast exploring the lives and experiences of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This podcast is not produced or endorsed by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but we do love that church. All rights reserved. And a great big shout out to Fast Sounds from Pixabay for the amazing and jammin' intro-outro music. Thanks, guys.